Have you ever experienced a moment that completely changed the course of your life? A chance encounter that seemed like fate? Before I share this incredible true story that will touch your heart, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more life-changing stories that remind us of the unexpected connections that shape our lives. Mark Jenkins pushed his shopping cart down the cereal aisle, his 6-year-old daughter Emma trailing behind, occasionally tossing items into the cart when she thought he wasn't looking. He was exhausted. The kind of bone-deep tired that came from working 60-hour weeks and then coming home to be both mom and dad to a little girl who deserved so much more than his stretched-thin attention. His wife Sarah had passed away 3 years ago after a brief but brutal battle with cancer, leaving him to navigate parenthood alone. "Daddy, can we get the rainbow ones?" Emma asked, her small hand reaching for a brightly colored box of cereal that was mostly sugar with artificial coloring. Mark hesitated. Sarah would have said no. She had been the nutritional gatekeeper, the one who made sure their daughter ate vegetables and limited processed foods. But Sarah wasn't here, and sometimes Mark just didn't have the energy to fight these small battles. "Just this once," he said, watching Emma's face light up as she placed the box in their cart. He made a mental note to make sure she ate extra fruit with breakfast to balance it out. The grocery store was crowded for a Tuesday evening. Mark maneuvered his cart through the produce section, mentally calculating how much he could spend while still putting money aside for Emma's college fund. He was so focused on his budget that he didn't notice the woman watching him from near the apples until she stepped directly into his path. "Excuse me," she said, her voice soft but confident. "I know this might sound strange, but I know you." Mark looked up, startled. The woman was about his age, maybe mid-30s, with kind eyes and dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wasn't wearing scrubs, but something about her demeanor reminded him of the nurses who had cared for Sarah during her final days. "I'm sorry," he said, shifting uncomfortably. "I don't think we've met." The woman smiled, a gentle expression that somehow made Mark feel both exposed and understood. "We haven't officially met, but I was there. I was there the night your wife died." Mark felt the air leave his lungs as if he'd been punched. Emma, sensing the change in her father's demeanor, moved closer to him, wrapping her small hand around his. "You're Mark Jenkins," the woman continued. "Your wife was Sarah. She had stage 4 ovarian cancer. I was a resident at Memorial Hospital 3 years ago." Mark stared at her, unable to form words. That night had been the worst of his life, a blur of beeping machines, hushed voices, and finally, devastating silence. He remembered very little about the medical staff who had been present, his focus entirely on Sarah and the crushing reality that she was slipping away. "My name is Rebecca Chen," the woman said. "I wasn't directly assigned to your wife's case, but I was there that night. And there's something I've wanted to tell you for 3 years." Mark felt Emma tugging at his hand. "Daddy, who is this lady?" "She's..." Mark began, but found he didn't know how to explain. Rebecca knelt down to Emma's level. "I'm someone who knew your mom a little bit. She was very special." Emma's eyes widened. "You knew my mommy?" "I did," Rebecca said. "And that's why I recognized your dad." Mark found his voice at last. "What did you want to tell me?" Rebecca stood up, meeting his gaze. "Could we maybe talk somewhere? Just for a few minutes?" Mark hesitated, looking down at Emma and then at their half-filled cart. Part of him wanted to politely decline and continue with their routine, to protect himself from reopening wounds that had never fully healed. But something in Rebecca's expression told him this was important. "Emma, would you like some ice cream?" he asked, pointing to the small in-store cafe area with a few tables. Emma's face lit up. "Yes, please." 10 minutes later, they were seated at a small table. Emma was happily occupied with a cup of chocolate ice cream, while Mark and Rebecca sat across from each other with untouched coffees between them. "I was just finishing my first year of residency when your wife was admitted," Rebecca began. It was a difficult night. We were understaffed, and there were several critical patients. Mark nodded, remembering how the hospital had seemed chaotic that night, with staff rushing between rooms and the sounds of emergency pages over the intercom. I wasn't supposed to be in your wife's room, Rebecca continued. But her nurse had been called to another emergency, and I was asked to check her vitals. When I entered, you had stepped out to make a phone call. Mark remembered that call. He had been updating Sarah's parents, who were driving through the night to try to reach the hospital in time to say goodbye. Sarah was awake, Rebecca said. She was in pain, but lucid. She saw my name tag and called me over. She asked me if I had children. Mark felt his throat tighten. This was a part of Sarah's final hours he hadn't been present for, a conversation he hadn't known about. I told her I didn't, Rebecca continued. And she said, I have a little girl. She's only 3. Then she took my hand and said something I've never forgotten. She said, promise me something. Someday, if you ever see my husband and daughter, tell them that I'm still with them. Tell them that love doesn't end. Tears filled Mark's eyes. He glanced at Emma, who was focused on scraping the last bits of ice cream from her cup, blissfully unaware of the weight of the conversation happening across from her. I promised her I would, Rebecca said. But then things got hectic. By the time I returned to the room, there were other doctors present, and soon after, well, she was gone. In the commotion, I never got to speak with you. I didn't even know your names until I overheard another nurse mention them. Mark wiped at his eyes with the back of his hand. How did you recognize us? After all this time? Rebecca smiled softly. Sarah had a photo by her bedside. It was of you and Emma at what looked like a beach. She was so proud of that picture, showed it to everyone. You were both smiling so big in that photo. When I saw you two in the cereal aisle, Emma had that same smile. Mark remembered the photo. It had been taken during their last family vacation, 6 months before Sarah's diagnosis. They had spent a week at a beach house on the Oregon coast. The picture Rebecca mentioned had captured a perfect moment, Mark and Emma building a sandcastle while the sunset painted the sky behind them. Sarah had framed it and kept it on her nightstand. For 3 years, I've thought about your family, Rebecca said. I've wondered how you were doing, if you were okay. I even looked you up once, but it felt intrusive. Then tonight, I saw you both, and I knew I had to fulfill my promise to Sarah. Mark looked at his daughter, this beautiful, resilient child who had Sarah's eyes and smile. Despite his best efforts, he knew there were ways he had fallen short as a single parent. The guilt of not being enough, of not being able to give Emma the mother she deserved, was something he carried every day. It's been hard, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. There are days when I don't know if I'm doing anything right. Emma deserves so much more than what I can give her alone. Rebecca reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of touching his. From what I can see, you're doing an amazing job. And Sarah would be proud. She loved you both so much, it was written all over her face even in those final hours. Emma looked up from her empty ice cream cup. Are you talking about Mommy? Mark nodded, unsure how to navigate this unexpected conversation. The lady says Mommy loved us, Emma said matter-of-factly. I know that. She tells me in my dreams sometimes. Mark and Rebecca exchanged surprised glances. What does she tell you in your dreams, sweetheart? Mark asked gently. Emma shrugged, as if the answer was obvious. That she's watching over us and that she's proud of you for taking care of me. And that she likes when I help you smile. Mark felt a fresh wave of emotion wash over him. Emma had mentioned these dreams before, but he had always assumed they were just a child's way of processing grief, of keeping her mother alive in her imagination. Your mommy asked me to tell you both something important, Rebecca said to Emma. She wanted you to know that she's still with you, and that love doesn't end. Emma nodded solemnly. That's what she says in my dreams too. The simplicity of his daughter's acceptance left Mark speechless. While he had been struggling with grief and doubt, Emma had somehow found a way to keep Sarah present in her life, to accept the continuing bond of love even after death. Rebecca checked her watch. I should let you finish your shopping. I needed to keep my promise. Thank you, Mark said, the words inadequate for the gift she had given them. Would you like to exchange numbers? Maybe we could talk more sometime. Rebecca smiled, a genuine warmth in her expression. I'd like that. As they exchanged contact information, Mark felt something shift inside him. For 3 years, he had been existing rather than living, going through the motions of life while keeping his grief carefully contained. Meeting Rebecca, hearing about Sarah's final message, had cracked something open, painful, yes, but also somehow freeing. They parted ways at the grocery store entrance, Rebecca heading to her car while Mark and Emma returned to finish their shopping. As they walked through the aisles, Mark noticed Emma skipping beside the cart, humming a tune Sarah used to sing to her. Daddy, Emma said as they stood in the checkout line, I like that lady. She has kind eyes like Mommy. Mark smiled down at his daughter. Yes, she does. Can we see her again? Emma asked. I think we will, Mark replied, surprised to find he was looking forward to it. That night, after tucking Emma into bed, Mark sat alone in the living room. He took out the photo album he had put away years ago, unable to bear looking at the images of their life before cancer had stolen Sarah away. He turned to the beach vacation photos, finding the one Rebecca had described seeing in the hospital room. There they were, him and Emma, laughing as sand covered their legs, the sunset creating a golden halo around them. And there, reflected in their joy, was Sarah's love. It had been there all along, unending, just as she had promised. Mark closed his eyes, allowing himself to feel the full weight of his grief, but also the possibility that had opened up before him. The chance to honor Sarah by truly living again, by allowing both him and Emma to move forward while carrying her love with them. 3 weeks later, Mark and Emma met Rebecca for coffee and a walk in the park. It was the first of many such meetings. Rebecca became a friend, someone who understood the shadow of loss that followed them but who also helped them step into the light. She shared stories from her medical residency, making Mark laugh for the first time in years. She listened to Emma's endless questions about the human body with patience and genuine interest. 6 months after their grocery store encounter, Rebecca joined them for Emma's 7th birthday party. As Mark watched her helping Emma blow out her candles, he felt a warmth that had been absent for too long. It wasn't about replacing Sarah, no one ever could, but about expanding their circle of love, just as Sarah would have wanted. A year to the day after they met, Mark and Rebecca sat on a park bench watching Emma play with other children on the playground. I have something to tell you, Rebecca said, her voice hesitant. I'm being offered a position at a hospital in Seattle. It's a great opportunity, but... Mark felt his heart sink. When would you leave? That's the thing, Rebecca said, turning to face him. I don't know if I want to go. This past year, being part of your lives, it's meant everything to me. Mark took her hand, an action that now felt natural after months of growing closer. Then stay. Emma and I, we want you in our lives. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. Are you sure? I don't want to complicate things. Mark smiled, thinking of how Sarah had somehow orchestrated this connection from beyond, how she had ensured they wouldn't be alone. I think Sarah knew exactly what she was doing when she asked you to find us. That evening, as Mark tucked Emma into bed, she asked a question that took him by surprise. Daddy, is Rebecca going to be my new mommy someday? Mark sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. Would that be okay with you if someday she was? Emma nodded, her expression serious. Mommy told me in my dream that it was okay to have 2 mommies, one in heaven and one here with us. Mark felt tears prick his eyes. Your mommy was very wise. So is Rebecca going to stay with us forever? Emma persisted. I hope so, sweetheart, Mark said. I really hope so. 2 years after their chance meeting in the grocery store, Mark and Rebecca were married in a small ceremony by the same Oregon beach where the photo had been taken. Emma, now 8, served as flower girl and gave a speech that left not a dry eye among the guests. I have 2 mommies now, she declared proudly. One who watches over me from heaven, and one who helps me with my homework and makes Daddy smile again. I think they would be best friends if they could meet. As Mark and Rebecca exchanged vows, a sudden gust of wind swept across the beach, carrying flower petals in a swirling dance around them. Later, when they looked at the wedding photos, they were stunned to see what appeared to be a perfect ray of sunlight illuminating the 3 of them as they stood together, a family rebuilt from broken pieces. 5 years after that fateful grocery store encounter, Rebecca gave birth to a baby boy they named Samuel Sarah Jenkins, honoring both Rebecca's father and the woman who had brought them together. As Mark held his son for the first time, with Emma leaning over to kiss her baby brother's forehead, he felt a sense of completion he had never thought possible after Sarah's death. That night, after the children were asleep, Mark and Rebecca sat on their porch swing, looking up at the stars. Do you think she knows? Mark asked softly. Do you think Sarah knows how happy we are? Rebecca leaned her head against his shoulder. I know she does. Love doesn't end, remember? It just finds new ways to express itself. Mark thought about the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment, from the devastating loss of Sarah to the miraculous encounter in a grocery store aisle, to the beautiful blended family they had created. None of it would have happened if Rebecca hadn't had the courage to approach him that day, to deliver a message of love that transcended death. I know you, Rebecca had said. Those 3 simple words had changed everything. And somewhere, Mark was certain, Sarah was smiling. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Life is full of unexpected connections and second chances. Sometimes all it takes is the courage to say, I know you, to a stranger to set in motion a journey of healing and hope. Share this video with someone who might need a reminder that even in our darkest moments, love finds a way to reach us.